Welcome to the GBC Podcast. I'm Pastor Matt. This is my wife, Nikki, and we wanted to take sort of an opportunity around the table here to be able to introduce ourselves a little bit in conversational form. You've got to know both of us in a little bit of different settings, and although you've met both of us at GBC, we're normally not together. We get to be together a little bit here and there. You see us in the lobby after service and all that, but many of you, especially ladies at the church, have met Nikki at the big event that we had for her, and then many of you have met me in different times. And so we just thought it'd be fun to sit together and share a little bit more of our story just in detail, but sort of in conversational kind of form. So thought that'd be fun for people to, I don't know, it's going to be fun for us. I don't know about for y'all, but it's going to be a lot of fun for us. So tell them a little bit about, we're going to work together here to tell everybody a little bit more about ourselves. So we've been married, it'll be 25 years this year in October the 12th. For those who didn't think I knew that, October the 12th, 1996 is when we got married. And so almost 25 years, we've got 4 kids. Our oldest daughter is 21 years old now. She just turned 21 at the end of June. Our youngest daughter is 11. She's still 11. And then a 13-year-old son, almost an 18-year-old son. So our girls are on the ends, 2 boys in the middle. And sort of that's sort of the makeup of our family. We got a couple dogs. We have a bigger dog, and then we have a little dog, and they both live in a house. And we've always been dog people. Anyway, that's a little bit about sort of the family anyway. So, all right, let's go back. Tell everybody because a lot of people may not know this, where you were born.
I was born in Casper, Wyoming, and that's a long way away. But my grandfather owned a trucking company years and years ago, and my dad went from town to town setting up distribution centers for that company. And so we moved around a lot. But then I ended up in North Mississippi in 3rd grade. I was in Aberdeen, and then we finally settled around the Tupelo area, where I started going to school at Moorville. Back when Moorville was a small school, I graduated there and just have been around there ever since.
Yeah, so that's where we met. You were living in Moorville when we met each other. So I had the same kind of history growing up, moving around a lot. My dad being a high school football coach, my mom being a public school teacher. So we moved around quite a bit here and there. And then, but I was born in Fulton, Mississippi. A lot of people know that now. They've heard that. Because some people here are familiar with Fulton and that area of Mississippi. So I was born there, moved around some, and then eventually moved back there to Fulton when I was entering my sophomore year in high school. So that would have been 1990, the summer of 1990. And so I got involved in my church family there. But so we sort of had a similar story. As a matter of fact, this is pretty cool, and it's a neat part of our story. We found out years after, we'd been, I guess, engaged before we sort of figured this out. But so she lived in Aberdeen because that's where some of her family was from. And I lived in Aberdeen at one point because my dad was a football coach at Aberdeen High School and baseball coach. And so we figured out, sort of putting some things together, that we both went in, what grade was it? Third grade. We both went on a water park trip with our respective churches, but our churches sort of went together. Mm-hmm. And so we would have probably ridden on the same bus to that water park when we were in 3rd grade. Never even, to my knowledge, never even met each other. Mm-hmm. But it was really cool sort of putting all that together. But so I ended up back where I grew up.
Also, we found out that your sister and my first cousin graduated Aberdeen High School together, and we were at that graduation.
That's exactly.
In
1988.
That's right. So we were at that graduation together and didn't know each other.
So we've sort of got those little things that we found out later as we were dating and got engaged. So it's pretty cool. But so when I grew up in Fulton, when I graduated high school, I started college at Itawamba Community College, which is a community college there in Fulton. And then Nikki almost went to Mississippi State, but couldn't. You want to tell that story?
Well, my car died. I had a old Ford.
It was an Escort.
Escort, that's right. It had an AM radio, and that was even old for then. It used a quart of oil a week, and finally it just died. And my dad said, I've got to get you a car, so I can't send you to Mississippi State. And I was very, very upset, but I ended up going to ICC and met my husband.
Yeah, so that's where we ended up meeting. So she almost went to Mississippi State, and I was there at ICC. She was at ICC, and so as the Lord would have it, we ended up meeting. And some people have heard this story, but I think we got one of the coolest stories ever that I've ever heard. It's romantic anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So at ICC, I had done some theater in high school. Nikki had never done theater before. Had you? Had you already done? You had already done theater in high school. Okay. So, see, I'm learning something now. So anyway, she was cast in a lead role in a musical at the community college there. I had done some theater in high school, but I wasn't really all that interested. But I got a call from the director who said, I need you to come and do a couple of parts. Would you mind doing that? We'll just combine a couple of parts into one. And I said, okay, I would. And so I showed up, and that minor part that I had in the musical, I ended up having some interaction with Nikki on stage. And so I remember sort of being on stage with Nikki, and she had the lead role, and she sang and all that. My part was small, but I did. That's where I actually got a chance to first meet her. But I wasn't interested in you. No. You were interested in me, though. No, you weren't.
No.
Not then.
My sister was interested in you for me.
Yeah. Your sister
She said, who is that guy that talks like this on stage? And I told her, I said, yeah, but, And she said, well, I liked him. And I was like, okay, well.
Yeah.
But so she picked you out.
She picked me out. Yeah. And so we ended up getting to know each other, but not really well on stage. I mean, we had sort of a part together and all that, but it wasn't until the following semester, fall. The fall of that year, that we ended up, we got into the theater program, having done that musical. And so we're going to read parts for a dinner theater that was going to be that semester. And you might want to tell that part of the story, because you were chasing me. Come on, you admit it. You were chasing me.
Well, I asked you to read. I said, read this with me. We were all in a room, and I was trying to figure out who the best looking guy was there.
Yeah, see, there it is.
You that I wanted to read with. So you and I read for the part together, and we got cast as husband and wife.
Yeah.
And I just let a few friends know that I thought you were cute, and I was interested. And then they chased you.
They did. Yeah, it bothered me for a little while. It said you need to ask Nikki out on a date. And so we did the dinner theater together, and I ended up, because of during rehearsals, we had a really good friend who was a director, and he wanted us to sort of date, and he was trying to match make a little bit while he was directing. And so he made us kiss each other on stage. And so we practiced that kiss several times, and then actually had to kiss each other on stage multiple times before actually we ever dated. But it was during the process of all that I asked you out, and you said yes immediately. So we went out the following weekend after all that was over with. The play was over with, and the rest is history, right? So we dated that first time, and we got married. So that was in 90. You'll have to help me. That was 94. Mm-hmm. And then we got engaged, and were engaged for a little while, and then got married in 96. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I think we got a pretty cool story.
It is.
How we met, and then 25 years of marriage almost, and God has been so good. Blessed us in so many ways, been gracious to use us. But a lot of people may not know that it wasn't until after we got married, really, that God sort of gave us direction for what the future was going to be in ministry. Because I didn't really know about, I had sensed God's call to ministry when I was 17 years old, a youth camp, and I wanted to do that. I never ran from that call. I just didn't know what that was. I didn't know what he was telling me to do exactly. Be a pastor. I didn't know. I didn't know what that looked. I didn't have anybody in my family in the ministry, so it was a little weird for me and confusing. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to do it, but I didn't know what to do. And so I ended up thinking, well, maybe I just missed the call to ministry. Maybe that's not what God wanted me to do. So I just went back and pursued a career in medical field, which is I don't know, I always wanted to be in the medical field. It was sort of a dream of mine. I like that kind of stuff. So
that was a trivia question at the ladies pounding last night. Sandra asked if anybody remembered what you were before you were a minister.
Yeah.
And several hands went up. Somebody got a prize.
Wow, somebody remembered that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, so I did that for a little while. I mean, I had to go back and get the degree. So while we were engaged.
Well, we were dating. We got engaged when you finished.
That's right. And it's hard to remember all that. So I finished the degree and started working at the hospital and just assumed that would be my career. And then we got married during that process while I was still working there at the hospital. But it was all that time at the hospital that I knew deep down, I guess, I knew that I wasn't really where I needed to be long term, just because I knew that God had called me to ministry. And so, again, it scared me to death. But I just kept working at the hospital for a little over a year, almost not quite a year and a half. Loved what I did, loved that whole part in working in surgery, but just knew that long term that was not going to be where I needed to be. So eventually, I just sensed deep down that God was still had called me, and that call was still there. So once, and you'll have to help me with this. Remember how these details worked out. Because we've talked about this 1,000 times. I never can get it right because it was so long ago. But I remember on a Baptist Men's Day, right? Mm-hmm. A bunch of men were in a choir at the church that I grew up in. We were in the choir room, and our pastor came in and said, I want 2 of you men to give a testimony.
Next Sunday.
So I've gotten these details a little fuzzy several times. But he said, I want 2 of you men to give a testimony next Sunday for Baptist Men's Day. And so one guy spoke up, one older man spoke up and said, yes, I will do that. And then he just sat there and he said, I remember him saying, I'm not leaving until somebody else volunteers. So it's like, but I'm almost a teenager, right? So I'm maybe 21 at the time, 20?
22.
I'm already 22.
Married. We got married at 21 and then we turned 22.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so yeah, so 22, and I'm thinking, I don't, but I felt the pressure, just felt like the Lord was really pointing his finger at me, like, and so I finally, it felt like an eternity, I finally agreed. I said, I'll do it. But I struggled like all week long with that because I knew I was going to give a testimony, but I really knew already what God was telling me to do, and that was to really surrender my life to ministry. So come next week, I never did tell you anything.
No, I thought, cool, he's giving his testimony. Yeah. I never even asked you about it.
That's really bad as a husband.
Now looking back, you were going through so much, and you didn't need me to give you my 2 cents, or even to say, "Are you sure?" I didn't need to do that. So I'm glad that you kept it, and because it was something God had placed on your life, and I had already surrendered to be your wife and follow you wherever you went. So I wouldn't have wanted to be a stumbling block just because out of fear. Yeah. And especially since you were the one really going through this.
Yeah, I was internally sort of wrestling with it. I knew what I probably needed to do, but it was later toward that week I realized this is what God wants me to do. So I surrendered that following Sunday in my testimony on Baptist Men's Day. I surrendered to the ministry publicly.
January 26, 1996.
1996?
No.
97.
It was.
That's right.
We got married, and then that January.
That's right. So I surrendered to ministry, and so it wasn't long after that then that I just said, "Okay, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do now that I've surrendered." So the only thing I knew to do was to go to school and get somebody to train me, somebody to tell me what that was going to look like. And the only place that I knew to go was Blue Mountain College. It was close, and I knew that they could help me. And I didn't really have any connections with Blue Mountain College necessarily. I did some, but I just said, that's what I got to do. So I quit my job at the hospital, and you got, I don't know how many jobs.
I just had 2.
Yeah. Over time, you had a lot of jobs, just putting me through school and getting started in ministry.
I think it's funny, though, when we first drove up to Blue Mountain College, I still remember driving through those gates and just thinking, well, I'd never been there before. And we drove up, and Dr. Meeks was new there. And we went in his class. There was a guy from our home church that was going to school there. And we visited Dr. Meeks' class. And there was only about 6 or 7 students in there. And we just sat in the back, and he took prayer requests. and talked to the kids, and they talked about the Lord, and his class was so interesting. And I just remember thinking, this is school, but it's like Bible camp. I mean, I thought, this is amazing that this is a school setting. And I know, hindsight, it's a Christian school and that's what they do. But at the time, I was like, I want to come too. This is great. And we even went in the hallway, and our friend Nathan, everybody was throwing their book bags in the hall. And I said, well, what's happening? He said, well, we're all going to lunch. It's lunchtime. Everybody just throws their book bag in the hall. Nobody's going to bother it. And that was the case. There was, nobody messed with anybody's stuff, not because it was a perfect school, but everybody there was pretty much there for the same reasons. But what was even more funny is we sat in Dean Washburn's office. He's passed away since, but Dean Washburn put out your whole schedule so that you could finish with your bachelor's degree. All your classes, and a couple of semesters you took 21 hours, and a couple of semesters you took 18.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, 2 years? This is going to take 2 years.
It's going to take forever.
It's going to take forever. This is crazy, because I wanted it done in like 6 months, But I remember thinking, but looking back, now that I'm older, it's 2 years. It was 2 years, and it flew by. But at that moment in time, I just thought that was going to be forever.
Yeah.
And it wasn't.
Yeah, that season of life, you don't really realize how short 2 years is. It went by so fast. Right. We worked really hard. I worked. I didn't have a job. Nikki did all the working while I went to school, because we knew it was going to be really demanding with 18 or 21 hours. And we cranked it out. We got it done, and I was able to graduate, and we moved on from there. But so that's sort of where our ministry really got started, began. We didn't know anything about ministry until then. And so God used that. I started serving at our first church was Biggersville, Mississippi, which is just south of Corinth, Mississippi, if some people know where Corinth is. And so we started there, served there for about 2.5 years, left there, and started seminary. We left there once I finished my bachelor's degree to go begin seminary. And we started at Mid-America Baptist Theological Seminary. And that's when Mid-America was at the old Germantown Baptist Church campus. And so it's really neat how God has sort of interwoven some of Germantown into our story, and we didn't really even know it. So it's pretty cool. But I started my master's degree there, but we didn't get the chance to stay long. I mean, we stayed, how long? Six months maybe?
Right, but we came, it was on the quarter system, so we were on the last quarter of the spring semester. So you only went to class like 9 weeks, and you started a job at the recreation ministry at Bellevue.
That's right.
And while you were there and you were filling in preaching everywhere you could, a church in Martin, Tennessee called. And so in August, we knew we were going to Martin, so you didn't reapply at Mid-America. So we didn't stay long.
Yeah, but we didn't stay long, get to know people much at all. We just were there very briefly, and then started serving in Martin, Tennessee at Central Baptist Church we stayed there for 4.5 years. Mm-hmm. And then, so that's where I finished up my master's degree. So I ended up getting my master's degree from Southern Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. Did it sort of extension work through Union University at Jackson, Tennessee. So anyway, that's how all that worked. And I got finished that up. And not too long after that, we ended up moving to Zachary, Louisiana, which is close to Baton Rouge, right north of Baton Rouge. Mm-hmm. And we only stayed there a couple of years. My mom was diagnosed with cancer, and we were told that it was inoperable, and so it wasn't going to be long that she was going to be alive. And so we prayed and asked the Lord to move us closer to home, and He did pretty quickly. So we were able to go to Booneville, Mississippi, which is only about an hour away from Fulton, my home. And so we moved and started pastoring that church. And fortunately, and thank God, that He gave my mom about 7 more years on chemotherapy and other things. So we got a chance for our kids to get to know my mom a lot better and all that.
Her surgery was operable.
It was operable. She went to MD Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
And they operated and gave her 7 more years.
That's right. And we didn't know that ahead of time, but God was gracious to her. So anyway, gave her that extra time, gave us that extra time with her. And so we spent 13 years in Booneville, pastoring and then moved to Germantown, a month and a half ago. So we're, sort of still getting our feet up under us here. But anyway, that's a little bit about sort of our story. That's how we ended up getting to where we are right now, almost 25 years into marriage. But anyway, so that's a little bit about us. We just wanted to take really an opportunity to sort of tell everybody a little bit more of who we are. And Nikki and I are, and people get to know us and find out real quickly that we are best friends. I don't have a better friend than Nikki. We're best friends in the world. We love each other more than anything. We love being together. We love laughing together. So Nikki and I love to have fun, and we love to joke with each other and that kind of thing. And our kids love to have fun, and we're a pretty fun family. I may seem pretty uptight on Sundays because I'm got a lot on my mind on Sundays. I'm preaching, but other times I have a tendency to have a lot of fun. But we enjoy that. We enjoy each other and being around each other. So anyway, that's a good thing, right? If you're married, you should enjoy being around each other.
Yes.
You'd think.
Yes.
But anyway, as a way to get to know us, we're going to say, and we've said this before to our Germantown family, that we want to get to know you. And that's hard. I know you know that. But we want to say thank you for one real particular thing that everybody has done and is still doing that makes it a whole lot better for us. There have been so many people that keep coming up to us and saying, "Hi, my name is," and you've met us 4 or 5 times already, but you keep telling us your name without expecting us to know your name. I just want to tell you that does more for us because it gives us a chance to hear your name again with you standing in front of us. So we want to get to know you. We're trying to let you get to know us, but we just want you to know we love you. God's called us here. We know that. And so we want to have that relationship with you. Just be patient with us. We're going to get there. Yes. We're going to get to know people's names and all that. So we just want to thank our Germantown family for being so gracious to us. Y'all been so good to us. Anyway, so that's a little bit about us. There's a lot more to us than that. Maybe we'll take another opportunity later to talk about our marriage and sort of how marriage has been for us. That might be encouraging to some. And
we are experts.
We are experts. Yes, we are experts. You more so.
On it being crazy. That's what we're experts on.
And we just pray God be merciful. God be merciful to our kids for the example they've had to follow. So anyway, that's our podcast for today. And next time when we have a podcast together, it'll be me with somebody else, maybe one of our staff members. We'll walk through the scripture together, spend some time in the Word. But for this, we just wanted to sit with you together as a couple and let you know a little bit more about us. So we'll see you next time for the GBC Podcast.